Hi everyone! So today we are going to talk about clipping. So clipping is when you shave a horse's hair, and there's a couple of different reasons why we do that. So for Mr. Tank here, he has what's called cushings, and it makes him grow long hair, and his hair, it's super long, and then it doesn't shed well in the summer. So even right now, when it's almost 100 degrees out, his hair is pretty long and thick. And for him, that's not a good thing because it keeps him hot. It makes him kind of grumpy and he doesn't really want to eat his food. Just like with us as people, we don't really like to be hot all of the time. Same thing with Tank. So today we're going to clip him and make him more comfortable, more cool, and he's going to be much happier once he's done. Another reason that you would want to clip horses is if you were showing them. You'll get more points and your horse will look better if they have a nice short coat. We also clip the donkeys because they don't shed the same way as horses. Unlike horses, who shed in the spring, donkeys hold onto their winter coat until fall, after a long summer of being too hot. Another reason to clip a horse is to help them stay cleaner. It is significantly easier and faster to groom a horse with short hair. This is especially true for horses such as Clydesdales that have long feathers on their legs. This extra hair, while pretty, is very difficult to keep free from bugs and bacteria. The final, and probably the most common reason for clipping, is to prevent sweating in cold weather. Like we discussed in part 1 of grooming, horses that live in cold environments will grow especially long coats. Even in bad weather, many riders are able to continue exercising and training inside of an indoor arena. Because they are still being exercised, horses will continue to sweat in cold weather. It takes a long winter coat much longer to dry, and the mixture of being cold and wet can actually make a horse sick. Many cold climate horses are clipped in order to prevent this. Right here I have my clipping blades, if you guys want to take a look at them. So the blades come in different sizes. So the smaller the number, the longer the hair will be, and then the bigger the number, the shorter the hair will be. So for example, this is a 5. So a 5 isn't going to make his hair super short, but a size 10 would make it pretty short, almost down to the skin. So this is just going to cut about half of the hair off. So when we clip the horse, first of all, we want to make sure that they're nice and clean. So I already brushed Mr. Tank. That way he's all ready to go. You wouldn't want your horse to be muddy or wet before you do it because you could end up breaking your clippers. And these are pretty expensive, so we don't want to break them. So before we start, I also have my clipping oil or clipping spray. And this is used to spray your blades, and that makes sure that they stay clean. And it also makes sure that they don't get too hot, because when I turn these on, you can see that they move really fast, and that ends up making it pretty hot. And if you're the horse getting clipped and they're hot, that's going to be pretty uncomfortable. So what we'll do is spray it first. That way they stay nice and cool. And now if you have a horse that hasn't been clipped before, or you don't know if they like being clipped or not, it's important to make sure that they get used to it first. So not only do these make sounds, but they also vibrate. So I'm gonna make sure that Tank is okay with this before we get started. He's a little bit unsure, see how he backed up? We'll let him see what he thinks. He's gonna sniff it a bit. And then if I put it on his skin before we actually cut, he can feel how it vibrates. You can see his ears are listening to the sounds too. He has them all the way back so that he can listen. Alright, so Tank seems pretty good with this. He's not too tense. His ears are pretty relaxed. So I think we're ready to get started. So I'm going to spray these one more time. You want to keep spraying them so that they never get too hot. And then when I start, I'm going to start in going against the direction of the hair. So if his hair goes this way, I'm gonna cut it this way. So I'm going to start back here by his hip. I'm going to cut. And then I brush the hair away. So you can see how that's a little bit shorter. It's not as short as, say, what a 10 would do, or a 7. And there's a couple of different styles of clipping that people do. Sometimes they leave just their head. They don't shave their head. Or they can leave just where the saddle goes. So we'll show you guys a couple different pictures of different clips that people do. But for Mr. Tank today, we're going to do his whole body except for his head and his legs. This is going to take quite a bit of time. Alright, so we are now halfway through our clipping project with Mr. Tank. And you can see he has a ton of hair that has come off of him so far. Look at all that hair. No wonder you feel hot in the summer. Alright, so now we have Tank after he has been clipped, and you can see, if you take a look up close, that the hair on his body is now pretty short, and then we left the hair on his legs and on his head, so that's a little bit longer. And the main reason that we would leave the hair on their legs and on their head is to offer them a form of protection. So that could be either for warmth in the winter. You can put a blanket on a horse, but the majority of blankets, they don't keep the horse's legs or their head warm. So the horses still need some form of hair to keep them warm in those areas. Another reason that you might leave their head and their legs is on horses like Tank that have light colored skin. You can see on his nose, all of this white hair, the skin is actually pink underneath there instead of gray. And because of that, if we were to cut off all of the hair and make it really short, he would be more likely to get sunburned, and we don't want that to happen. So you're gonna see, we're gonna show a couple different clips that you can do, and on a lot of the horses, they'll leave their legs uncut and their head. Now let's look at the individual types of clips. To start off with, we have the full clip. This is where all of the hair is taken off of the horse. And this is done on horses being ridden and shown regularly. This clip has a very clean, sleek appearance, but it offers little to no protection from the elements. The hunter's clip is the same as the last, but leaves the legs unclipped. The area where the saddle sits is also left unclipped to provide more cushioning and less rubbing from the saddle. A blanket clip is similar to the hunter clip, but leaves the hair along the back to provide more warmth and protection. This clip is appropriate for horses that are ridden a couple times a week, where they might sweat a little bit, but not too much. The trace clip is appropriately named because the line going across the horse sits in the same area that the traces of a cart would sit. This clip can also be cut as a low trace or a high trace, going lower or higher than the one shown here. The difference in this clip from the blanket clip is that hair is left along the neck. The Irish clip is cut from the poll, which is at the top of the head, down across the sides, but leaves the hind legs completely unclipped. This clip is good for horses that are lightly ridden. The bib clip only removes hair from underneath the horse, which is the area most likely to sweat. This clip offers almost complete protection from the elements, but because the horse still has most of its hair, it's still going to sweat. Lastly, horses can be clipped for fun. Some creative people make designs and different patterns on their horses. It takes proper equipment and many hours of practice to learn how to do this.
Hello, today we're going to talk about trimming the muzzle, trimming a bridle path, the hooves, and we're going to talk about why we do this. Most of the time, all of these features are trimmed for horse showing, so for appearance. So you turn them on, and you always want to go against so if they're laying this way, you want to go against the hair. So you would come up, and it snips them right off. And it makes a clean shaven muzzle. We do this for horse shows. That's really the only time we do it. And it's just to make them look better, so they don't look as scruffy, as unclean. So as we go, we have to keep changing directions depending on which direction the whiskers are going. Now the whiskers, they actually have an importance when they're out in the wild. And you would never shave them if they were living out in the wild. Of course, you couldn't get to them. But those whiskers, as they grow, they also grow long so the horse knows that they can eat in a small area. So, for example, if you have grass between two rocks, and the horse wants to put his head between those two rocks, if those whiskers touch the edges of the rocks, then they know they don't put their head in any farther. Because if they do, they could get their head caught. Cats, dogs, anything that has whiskers that stick out past their head, that is the purpose of those whiskers, so that they know where they can put their head without it getting stuck. We do a bridle path up here for the top of the bridle, so it sits and rests easier and doesn't pull the hair at the top of their head. So the harder part is because when they raise their head up, it's hard to see. And you just go exactly where that halter and that bridle would go. Just like that. And see, then when you put the halter back, it's a clean space for it to sit. And that way the halter or the bridle cannot pull against their mane or forelock. So it's just a little more comfortable for them. The other thing we do when we're showing is we actually come down and we do the back of their legs. So these get really long, like these are longer, and what you do is you just take and you just trim them up a little bit. And that way it shows the definition of their leg, so you can really see how their leg is built. When you're horse showing, you also, all these little tufts that are sticking out, you just take the top off of them. And just so everything looks smoother. So we'll do, whoops, legs too close together. And you just run down. And this time you go against the hair so that you're not cutting too much off. Just like that. We also, for horse shows, we cut around this coronary band. And so you would put your clipper flat and you would just come up just a little bit, and it cleans up where you can really see the distinct line where the hook and the hair come together. We do this on all four legs. And now there's a clean line without little hair sticking down. So it would be the same on this one. And it doesn't take much. And now there's a nice line there. The other thing when we horse show, we want all of his lines to be very clean and smooth so we can really see what he looks like. So the other thing is all these long hairs that hang down at his chin, we would take all of those off. So we go against the hair and we would just take them off. And this helps to make his head look very proportioned to his body. When it's got lots of hair sticking out, then sometimes it's hard to tell what it really looks like. But now it's a nice, clean, smooth line from his jowl. And you would do that all the way. So even down here, you would take this off. And see how much nicer that looks. He doesn't look like he's got hair going every which way. It's all going the same direction. And it gives him a nice, clean, shaven underneath side of his head.